Information from the Vatican to the White House and everything in between.
It's serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic Drive Time.
And welcome to Catholic Drive Time. This is your host, Adrian Fonseca. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023, the feast of Saint William of Vercelli, a nobleman born in 1085 in Vercelli, Italy, had a deep longing to renounce the world and live as a hermit. At a young age, he built a hermitage at Monte Vergine, where his sanctity and miracles attracted numerous disciples. A community formed around him, and a church dedicated to Our Lady was erected on the site. An extraordinary phenomenon was observed at the monastery, and according to the rule, the monks were forbidden to consume meat, eggs, milk, and cheese. And whenever someone attempted to bring forbidden food into the monastery, storm clouds would appear in the sky and lightning from heaven would destroy the illicit items. Now, these events, which demonstrated God's desire for the traditions of penance and austerity upheld by St. William, highlight the beautiful harmony and contrasts of the Middle Ages. The Catholic Church in that era not only fostered intellectual pursuits, but also emphasized manual labor and encouraged both active and contemplative lives. Upon St. William's death on June 25th, 1142, his institution ceased to exist, and the monastery was handed over to the Benedictines of Monte Cassino. In reverence to St. William, these Benedictine monks adopted the white habit of his order, displaying their love for tradition and their hope for the restoration of the order of St. William. From St. William's life, we can draw inspiration. We can emulate his unwavering trust in divine providence, even when he was excluded from his own order. And we can aspire to possess the same wisdom and humility that he exhibited while advising the King of Naples. St. William of Vercelli, pray for us. Happy Wednesday to you. Congratulations. You are halfway through the week. Can you believe it? It's already Wednesday. The week is flying by super fast. I hope that you're having a blessed week so far. Joining us right now is our co-host, Tito Edwards. Good morning to you, Tito.
Good morning, Adrian. Yeah, it's Wednesday, hump day. It's great.
You sound excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's great.
Oh, my bad. I was just reading the William and his austerity, St. William. What an inspiration. But I worked it's been pretty hot the last couple of days, and I feel drained from it because I've been doing some outdoor shopping, trying to fix up my lawn and do a little gardening. So I've been going a lot to Lowe's, Home Depot, those kind of places. And all that gardening stuff is not in the air-conditioned warehouse. It's outdoors. So
yeah, right now it's just not, it's such bad weather.
It is.
In the Houston area anyway. I don't know what it's like elsewhere. I'd be curious. It's funny. People always say Houston is the only place where we will actually genuinely just sit down and talk about the weather. Because it's just so bad. The weather is not fun. Not a very fun situation that we find ourselves in. It was like 100 degrees the other day. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I just don't want to be outside. So it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough, not going to lie. The heat drains you too. It just sucks the energy out of you, and you're like, oh, I'm done for the day. So God bless all the men who go out there and work in the sun and that are working on construction and whatever else, whatever it is that you're doing that's outdoors. God bless you, man. God bless you, because that is that's real work right there. And getting your hands dirty and the sun on your back. Whoo-wee. May God bless your work. We definitely need more people to do things like that.
I could just imagine what it is in Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, and the other parts of Texas. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine those the weather? Like it was in San Antonio. The weather in San Antonio was really bad. Whenever we went there for the march, I was like, this is rough, but it was good. Praise be to God.
Praise be to God.
It's good to be able to have those situations. So hopefully everybody's staying hydrated and shaded and staying cool, getting some air conditioning every once in a while, hop in the car and get that air conditioning for a little bit. But definitely make sure you keep yourself safe. At 15 past the hour, we're going to be discussing a couple of things. A business in California hires a fake priest to hear the confessions of employees. That's very concerning. The Knights of Columbus are hosting a mass at the Freemasons auditorium. What? That's weird. And California is also there. They put a man into the women's prison after committing murder multiple times. So if you're a murderer, we still got to respect your pronouns, apparently. And then at 30 past the hour, Judge Thapar is going to be on to discuss Clarence Thomas, a very interesting man Clarence Thomas is. And so we're going to be talking about him. And in the next hour, Adam Blai is going to be on to discuss the occult in popular culture. So that's going to be coming up in the next hour. Plus, of course, we have our Fear and Trembling game show. And you can call in. Just make sure you are ready to get that number down in the next hour. So let's begin with prayer. We pray, of course, today in a special way this week. I'm praying for my grandmother's brother, Jose Luis Guerra, who is going to be who passed away last week, and his funeral, I believe, is today. My mother and my father just drove down for the funeral there in the valley. And they're making that trip. So prayers for everyone that's traveling across Texas for this funeral, and a prayer for the repose of Jose Luis Guerra, and for all of my family and friends who have been affected by this tragedy. So we'll be praying for those intentions. Especially, we also be praying for the virtue of humility over the vice of pride. We pray for our friends, family, and benefactors, and all those we promise to pray for. Whatever it is that you have going on this week, whatever losses that you've experienced, we're praying for that as well. And of course, we're praying for the smashing of the LGBT heresy. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. My loving Jesus, out of the grateful love I bear thee, and as a reparation for all my unfaithfulness, I give thee my heart, and I consecrate myself wholly to thee. And with thy aid, I propose never to sin again. Heart of Jesus, burning with love for us, inflame our hearts with love of thee. Let us pray. Lord, we beseech thee, let thy Holy Ghost enkindle in our hearts that fire of charity which our Lord Jesus Christ, thy Son, sent forth from his inmost heart upon this earth, and will that it should burn with vehemence, who liveth and reigneth with thee in the unity of the same Holy Ghost, God, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now your headline news with Tito Edwards.
Good morning. You are listening to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, Anno Domini 2023, and these are your headlines. LifeNews.com is reporting an elderly Michigan abortionist is accused of running over a pro-life advocate with his vehicle last week outside a Saginaw abortion facility, breaking the man's leg. Mark Zimmerman, a pro-life sidewalk counselor, told Live Action News that his tibia was fractured and he is using a wheelchair until he has surgery to place pins and screws in his leg. LifeSite News is reporting well over 250 Muslim and Christian parents, children, and other pro-family citizens gathered for the second straight weekend in Canada's largest western city to protest the ongoing promotion of LGBT ideology in public schools. LifeSite News is reporting Ireland expected to pass anti-Catholic bill criminalizing prayer outside abortion facilities. According to reports, anyone repeatedly protesting outside an Irish abortion facility could face a €2,500 fine or 6 months in prison. And finally, Catholic World News and Catholic News Agency are reporting German police searched offices of the Cologne Archdiocese on June 27, seeking evidence that Cardinal Rainier Maria Wolke might have given false testimony about his knowledge of clerical abuse. A spokesman for prosecutors that any new evidence uncovered by the search could either support or disprove charges of lying under oath against the cardinal. He added that Cardinal Wolke is not being charged with covering up or participating in any acts of abuse. Cardinal Wolke has twice offered his resignation after it became known that he declined to publish an internal report. Those were your headlines this morning. God bless you all.
The gospel of the day comes from Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20. Be on your guard against false prophets, men who come to you in sheep's clothing but are ravenous wolves within. You will know them by the fruit they yield. Can grapes be plucked from briars or figs from thistles? So indeed, any sound tree will bear good fruit, while any tree that is withered will bear fruit that is worthless. That worthless fruit should come from a sound tree, or good fruit from a withered tree is impossible. Any tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. I say therefore that it is by their fruit that you will know them. The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Cornelius a Lapide had a lot to say here. He says, beware of false prophets. Christ passes on to a most salutary admonition concerning the taking heed of false teachers, who teach that the way to heaven is not straight, but easy, and who thus sends those who follow them not to heaven, but to hell. They teach that we need not fast, nor go to confession, nor preserve virginity, nor religious vows. They allow all sorts of liberty to the flesh and take away all merit from good works. Now, this passage here is very important and very telling in our day, because notice what he says here. He says those people will try to tell you that the way to heaven is not straight, but easy. That it's not difficult to get to heaven. So if there are people who are telling you, no, going to heaven is easy. It's super easy to get to heaven. Don't even worry about it. In fact, we have a reasonable hope that all men are saved. In fact, we have a reasonable hope that Jews, Muslims, Protestants, and pretty much every Catholic is going to heaven. If someone tells you that, they are false prophets. They are trying to lead you astray. They are trying to teach you something that is not going to lead you to heaven, but as Cornelius a Lapide says, it instead will lead you to hell. And they teach people who say, oh, we don't need to fast anymore. That's so medieval. If they say, no, going to confession, no, we don't need to do that. Just confess directly to God. Oh, preserving virginity, that's so outdated. We don't believe those things in the church anymore. All these things are false teachings. Now, the sheep's clothing which these wolves put on are to veil their errors and heresies. First, under the plea of liberty of conscience, and second, by quoting the texts of Scripture that serve to favor their heresies. Third, to the pretext of reforming the morals of the church, especially those of clergy and ecclesiastics. Fourth, by the simulation of meekness, simplicity, and piety. And fifth, by soft speeches and a garrulous eloquence, by which they cover their wolfish ferocity. Now, notice these are 5 ways in which these people try to veil their errors. And notice what number 1 is. The plea of liberty of conscience. Have you ever heard anyone say that before? Say things like, oh, you just got to follow your conscience. Well, if your conscience says you have to do X, and I guess you have to do it. And what is about number 2 there? By quoting the text of Scripture to serve to favor their heresies. Have you ever heard a heretic quote Scripture in order to defend their heresies? Of course you did. Of course you have. They do it all the time. Another one, the third one he mentions here, the pretext of reforming the morals of the church, especially those of the clergy and ecclesiastics. Have you ever heard anyone saying, oh, well, maybe we need to have married priests? Oh, what if we let women get ordained? Women have deacons, women priests. Oh, we need to allow priests to have a more lax morality. We need to be buddy with Father. These kind of reforming of the morals of the church. And saying, oh, contraception? Yeah, we're okay with that now. It's very, very interesting. And they say that it's a reform. We're not changing the church teaching. We're just getting up to date. And the fourth one here, by the simulation of meekness, simplicity, and piety. How many priests or religious that are wolves in sheep's clothing come off as very caring, very loving. They pretend to be very charitable. Oh yes, I love these people. I just want to be nice to people. We should just be nice to people. And they hide behind this simulacrum of meekness, simplicity, and piety, but really they are wolves. And then finally, by soft speeches and garrulous eloquence, by which they cover their wolfish ferocity. Now, this is very common. We see people who are heretics speak very well. What about the mega church pastors? What about the Joel Osteens of the world who speak very well? They say things that tickle the ears, and yet they are wolves in sheep clothing, leading people far, far away from the truth. So let us look at the teachings of these people. Let's see the morality of these people, because false doctrine and bad morals usually go together. So if we see one, it's a good chance there's a number 2 is following nearby.
Walks like a duck.
So we'll be right back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking about a Californian store hiring a actor to pretend to be a priest. Yikes. We'll be right back with more after this. And welcome back to Catholic Drive Time. This is your host, Adrian Fonseca. It's so good to be on with you today. Now, this is a pretty wild story. It's almost a situation where you gotta laugh or else you're gonna cry or be infuriated. And this story made me incredibly angry when I was reading this. I'm just kind of fuming reading this story. It's really despicable to see something like this. California taqueria chain fined $140,000 for hiring a fake priest to hear workplace confessions. This employer despicable attempt to retaliate against employees were intended to silence workers, said Regional Solicitor of Labor Mark Pilotin. Now, this is reported out of Timcast News. It says, U.S. Department of Labor fined Che Garibaldi Incorporated. So if you ever heard of them, stay away from their business. They should get shut down. $140,000 after launching an investigation into the business in November of 2021. Now, I can't believe this happened in 2021, and I'm just now hearing about this. The company owns 3 Taqueria Garibaldi locations and hired someone to pose as a priest and, quote, get the sins, unquote, out of the staff members by offering confession during work hours. The person posing as a priest asked employees various questions about their workplace conduct, including whether they had ever stolen or if they had ever been late. The DOL called the fake priest plot, quote, among the most shameless, unquote, seen by federal wage and hour investigators, denouncing the scheme as an act of workplace intimidation and retribution. Under oath, an employee of Taqueria Garibaldi explained how the restaurant offered a supposed priest to hear their workplace sins, while other employees reported that a manager falsely claimed that immigration issues will be raised by the department investigation, said Mark Pilotin and the Regional Solicitor of Labor in San Francisco. In a statement, this employer's despicable attempts to retaliate against employees were intended to silence workers, obstruct an investigation, and prevent the recovery of unpaid wages. Now, the story goes on, and he says that the Los Angeles Times obtained a sworn affidavit from a Taqueria Garibaldi server, Maria Parra, who described her conversation with the fake priest as to be, quote, strange and unlike normal confession. Huh, no doubt.
Yeah.
He asked if I ever got pulled over for speeding, if I drank alcohol, or if I had stolen anything. The priest mostly had work-related questions, which I thought was strange, Parra said. The priest asked if I had stolen anything at work, if I was late to my employment, if I did anything to harm my employer, and if I had any intentions toward my employment. Now, this is interesting because, generally speaking, the priests are not going to start interrogating you in the confessional. They're typically going to allow you to speak, and then they might ask clarifying questions about things you brought up. Unless you explicitly say, hey, Father, it's been a long time since my confession. Can you help walk me through an examination of conscience? A priest might be willing to help you there. But a priest rarely, very rarely is going to start asking you, have you ever done X? Have you ever done Y? Have you ever done Z? He's not supposed to be accusing you. You are supposed to be accusing yourself. And the priest is supposed to help you make a good confession. And the way he helps you make a good confession is asking clarifying questions. So you say, oh, I've stolen. Oh, well, how much was it worth? He's not going to ask you, oh, where did you steal from? Oh, was it from your business? No, he's going to ask you, how much was it worth? Okay, you need to make restitution. Hey, that's what the priest will say. Now, obviously, depending on where you steal from, for instance, if you steal from the church, it actually becomes a graver matter and should be brought up in the confessional. But stealing from your store versus someone else's store, those two things would be about on par. And so you wouldn't need to divulge every last detail of the sin. So no priest will be asking you those kind of questions. Now, the fine includes a $70,000 of back pay wages, as well as $70,000 of damages to 35 employees. And the company has also paid the DOL $5,000 in civil penalties. Now, this is not even close to what they should be getting. This should be, in a just society, this place would be shut down completely. And every Catholic in San Francisco should be avoiding this business entirely. They should get shut down just by everyone not attending. What kind of nonsense is this? Now, the Diocese of Sacramento conducted its own investigation into the Taqueria confessions in concluding that, quote, there is no evidence of any connection between the Diocese of Sacramento and the alleged priest in this matter, according to Brian Vistacion, a director of media and communications for the diocese. While we don't know who the person in question was, we are completely confident that he was not a priest of the Diocese of Sacramento, they told a Catholic news agency. Now, here is the thing, one thing I want to say. One, I'm very happy that San Francisco came out and did an investigation and came out explaining the situation. However, I think that the Diocese of Sacramento needed to come out like a firebrand and condemn this business and ask all Catholics to not attend this business ever again. This is one of the most wicked of sins. I have to go back and check. I should have looked it up beforehand, but I'm pretty sure the imitation of sacraments, the simulacrum of sacraments, is a excommunicatable offense. And if this man is a Catholic, I'm fairly certain, I got to double check this, I'm fairly certain that he's automatically excommunicated for imitating a priest and performing the sacraments and putting on a simulacrum of the sacraments.
Has the Archdiocese issued any statement at all?
Well, just the one I just read.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, I mean, I think they should be much more forward. I'm glad they put out a statement saying that they have investigated and that it's not a priest of the diocese, which is good. But I think that they need to just completely condemn these people. And honestly, if it's not an excommunicatable offense, I'm fairly certain it is. If you would look that up, that'd be great. But if it's not, it definitely should be. And the priest and these people involved should be excommunicated from the church. I just assume that they're Catholic because a lot of people in California are Mexicans, they're Catholics, and so I think that's very that's a big deal. That's a big deal. I don't know why California keeps coming up in these headlines, because the next headline here is transgender triple murderer is sent to women's prison. Dana Rivers is behind bars with women in California. Now, I don't know if Dana is, David is his real name. David is his name, and he identifies as a woman, was convicted of triple murder with Charlotte Reed, Patricia Wright, a lesbian couple in their late 50s, and their 19-year-old son, Benny, in Oakland, California in 2016. And this man was put in prison with women. That's absurd. It's crazy to me that even whenever someone is the wickedest of people, somehow we are still required to respect their pronouns. We're still required to send them to these. What do you think a violent man is going to do in a women's prison? This is absurd. Just because you're in prison doesn't mean you lose every human right. You don't deserve, because you're in prison, to be locked in a room with a man, with a murderer. If this person is being sent to a women's prison, I pray that the women in that prison are able to stay safe from this man. This is absurd. This is the craziest thing that we've seen. And this is not the first time we've seen this. We've seen this over and over and over again. This happens all the time. But for some reason, every time it comes up, it always surprises me that no one is standing up. Where are the feminists at? Where are the women rights activists at? Where are they? This is actually one point where I would stand behind the feminist, where I would stand behind the women rights activist. I would be like, yes, this is actually a real women's issue. Instead, people are worried about the wage gap that doesn't exist. They're worried about wanting to push women into the workforce whenever the proper role is being a mother, and they want to send them into the workforce. And yet, whenever there's a real women's issue, they want to say, no, we're not going to touch that one because that's a hot topic. That's going to offend people. People are going to be mad about that. Very, very concerning. And this should be rejected entirely. And California is just, whew, it really needs God. California needs Fatima, as what I say. Now, this last story here is very, very serious. And I'm sort of shocked that this is being allowed. The Knights of Columbus to host Mass in Masonic Auditorium at International Peace Garden. Now, this is very concerning for a number of reasons, and not least of which is that the Knights of Columbus have been fighting for years, saying that they are trying to distance themselves from the Freemasons, because people are saying, oh, the Knights of Columbus are basically the Freemasons in the Catholic Church, which I don't believe at all. I don't think that's true at all. However, when they do things like this, how on earth are we supposed to say, yeah, that's definitely a case? That's definitely not true. Whenever they're having liturgies in a Freemasonic building. In North Dakota, in the Canadian province of Manitoba, they're holding a mass of solidarity and friendship at the International Peace Garden in the Masonic Auditorium on the grounds of the park. This is very bad, because there can be no peace between Catholics and the Freemasons. The Freemasons are the sworn enemies of the church. They have sworn to destroy the church. They have marched on Rome with an effigy of the Pope and being hung. The Freemasons have been condemned by the Catholic Church over and over and over again. And if any Catholic is a Freemason, you are automatically excommunicated, automatically, for joining the Freemasons. And you must seek out your bishop for absolution. Freemasonic ideology is bad. It promotes the egalitarian nature. It seeks to destroy the church. And yet we're seeing Knights of Columbus holding this. And then what priest or bishop is allowing this to happen? Because it says this year it has been scheduled for Sunday, July 9th in the Masonic Auditorium with Archbishop Richard Gagnon of Winnipeg as a celebrant. Archbishop Richard Gagnon of Winnipeg is celebrating Mass at a Freemason auditorium. And no one sees anything wrong with that? No one sees, hey, that's probably not a good idea. What if it was an abortion clinic, and someone's like, hey, let's have a celebration, we'll use the abortion clinic as a venue? Would you be like, yeah, no problem? It would be very bad, no? I would say it would be very bad, yes. This is a very, very concerning situation. And if you go and look at the building, the actual building itself is shaped like a Freemason symbol. So it's not like it's a generic building either. It's a ginormous building that's in the shape of the compass with the G. That symbol is the shape of the building. And yet we see Catholics promoting it. And just remember, Leo XIII clearly said in Humanum Generis, let no man think that he may for any reason whatsoever join the Masonic sect, if he values his Catholic name and his eternal salvation as he ought to value them. Let no one be deceived by the pretense of honesty. It may seem to some that Freemasons demand nothing that is openly contrary to religion and morality. But as the whole principle and object of the sect lies in what is vicious and criminal, to join with these men and in any way help them cannot be lawful. We'll be right back with more after this.
Back to the Catholic Drive Time Show. Today is Wednesday, June 28, 2023, in the year of our Lord, and these are your headlines for this morning. Catholic News Agency is reporting Pope Francis on Tuesday accepted the resignation of the embattled Bishop Rick Stika of Knoxville, Tennessee. Stika, 65, was investigated by the Vatican for mismanagement of his diocese. He is also named in a 2022 lawsuit accusing him of protecting a seminarian accused of multiple counts of rape. The lawsuit also claims Stika attempted to intimidate an alleged victim, a parish organist, into keeping quiet about alleged sexual assault by an unnamed person and having accused the alleged victim of being the perpetrator. Pope Francis named Archbishop Shelton Fabre of Louisville, Kentucky, as the diocese's apostolic administrator until a new bishop is appointed. Catholic News Agency is reporting the dictatorship of President Daniel Ortega and his wife, Vice President Rosario Murillo in Nicaragua, has set up the red and black flags of the Sandinista Liberation Front, the regime's political party, in front of the cathedral in Matagalpa. The Bishop of Matagalpa, Rolando Alvarez, was sentenced to 26 years and 4 months in prison, charged with treason to the homeland. Ortega has been in power since 2007. The Sandinistas are a socialist political party. In a statement to EWTN News, Martha Patricia Molina, a researcher and author of the report Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church, charged that obviously this is one more provocation from the Sandinista dictatorship against the Catholic Church in Nicaragua. Catholic News Agency is reporting while many Catholics across the country have expressed solidarity with Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, following a formal investigation into him and his diocese ordered by Pope Francis, the East Texas prelate has not made any formal statements following the apostolic visit. He has, however, continued to post many tweets. It is unclear how many of his tweets are related to the investigation. However, one directly addresses his supporters in which he thanked an organization for its support. Other than that, his Twitter feed is par for the course for the widely popular firebrand bishop who is admired by many Catholics for his outspokenness against prominent modern-day issues such as abortion, gender ideology, and the political agendas of elected officials who blatantly disregard the sanctity of the unborn. And finally, 1440 is reporting Chicago, Detroit, and Minneapolis had the worst air quality in the world yesterday as wildfire smoke from Canada covered parts of the Midwest. I am Tito Edwards, and these are today's headlines through a Catholic lens.
Thank you, Tito, for keeping us up to date. Now, before we move on, I did want to bring up, because for some reason I didn't bring this up earlier, but I guess I figured it doesn't need to be said, but I guess it should be said nonetheless, that if anyone ever goes to a confession to someone who's not a priest, that's not a valid confession. And you have to confess those sins again to a real priest in the context of a real confession. Those kind of situations are not valid. They're never valid. And so we have to keep that in mind. Very, very important to do. Now, the other thing to note about this situation is that we have to be careful about where and how we go to confession and receive the sacraments in general. This is very important. I personally, and I've mentioned this before, but it's worth saying again, I don't go to confession. I don't go to Mass anywhere except where I trust the priest, where I know and trust the priest. If I know and trust the priest, I will go to Mass there, I'll go to confession there, or it's a community that I know and trust. If it's a community that has a reputation for orthodoxy, and that I'll be familiar with, then I'd be more inclined to go to church there and receive the sacraments there. But otherwise, I don't, because there's just so much insanity in the world that you just don't know. You just don't know these days, especially when you see things like this California taqueria hiring an actor to pretend to be a priest. Like, that's even worse than anything we've seen so far. How they can pretend. They can just get somebody and say, yeah, that guy is going to be our priest, and he's going to hear your confessions. Those are invalid. This is very invalid because it's both invalid and it's also malicious. Whereas at least in a lot of these cases where a priest was invalidly baptized and was given the sacraments in that way, that typically in those situations, they were unaware. They were not intending to do something wrong. They weren't intending to try to offend God. They just were put in a bad situation. Whereas this situation is pure malice, it's pure wickedness. A very, very disturbing situation with that simulacrum of a sacrament. And I think more of this needs to be rejected. It's a very, very concerning situation that comes up, and I'm just always surprised how the wickedness of some people. And the same thing with the Knights of Columbus. Knights of Columbus allowing themselves to do something so wicked as to go in and have a mass celebrated at a Freemason venue. So if you're a Knight of Columbus, and if you know a Knight of Columbus, if you're friends with the Knight of Columbus, if you ever see the Knights anywhere, I highly recommend contacting your local Knights and making sure that goes up the chain of command and you voice your concern, because this is very bad. This is a very bad situation. I myself am a Knight. I was made a Knight back in 2020. I'm not incredibly active. My Knights Council would probably just be like, yeah, Adrian, you're not a Knight anymore. You just haven't been to anything in like 3 years. But it's still the case. It's still the case that this is a very real and very bad situation. So make sure you reach out to your Knights of Columbus circle, your council, and have that moved up the chain of command so people know that this is very, very bad, and that Father Michael McGivney would be absolutely flabbergasted about something like this, because he created the Knights of Columbus in direct opposition to the work of the Masons in America. A very, very bad situation. So let's be Catholics. Let's be Catholics whole and entire. Let's not reject anything here. And let's pray for the conversion of these people who are doing such wicked actions. But let's also take action. Let's also go up and encourage our fellow Catholics to be faithful, because they won't be faithful unless they're pressured to, a lot of people. But joining us right now via phone is his honor Amul Thapar. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. I have to correct me. He's a judge in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit and the son of Indian immigrants. He grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and graduated from Boston College and the University of California at Berkeley Law School. Good morning to you, Mr. Thapar.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
Well, praise be to God. It's good to have you. Now, it's very interesting to me. You put out a book defending or kind of showing who Clarence Thomas really is. And I thought it was interesting to me because I was actually talking to my mother during the Brett Kavanaugh situation, and she was like, yeah, it was crazy with the Clarence Thomas thing. And I realized that a lot of people were not woken up to the fact that people were lying about Clarence Thomas this whole time, until the Brett Kavanaugh situation was so obviously a farce that people are like, oh, well, maybe they're lying about Clarence Thomas too. So let's start with Clarence Thomas, of who he is on his character. So tell me about this man.
Yeah, so as I talk about in the introduction to the book, Justice Thomas is a man of incredible character. And I think you see that just from the very first story I tell about Justice Thomas. In the book itself, I tell the stories of 12 cases. I think they captivate the reader, everything from vouchers to parental rights and everything in between, you can imagine. But what the introduction and conclusion are my own. And in the introduction, I tell a story of him walking out of daily mass. So he's a daily mass goer, and he's walking out of daily mass with a few of his law clerks who chose to go with him that day. And a homeless person comes running up to him saying, Justice, Justice, you're not going to believe, I have another petition for you. I have another petition for you. And the clerks brace, and they reach for the justice just instinctively, right, to protect him. And he shoos them away. And he goes to talk to the homeless man, and they can see he's animated, and he wants no one near him, and Justice Thomas and him are having a conversation. Then Justice Thomas walks back to the clerks, and he says, you know, these are hard days for him. And they look at him, and they say, Justice, what is this about? And he says, a few years ago, he was addicted to drugs and as a result, had a falling out with his mother. I counseled him to get clean, and about 2 years ago, he finally did. And then he reconciled with his mom. His mother recently passed away, and he's struggling. And Justice Thomas is the type of person, and anyone that knows him, even his critics, if they know and meet him, they know he's the type of person that follows his faith to the final degree, and that he treats all people, critic, friend, homeless person, people he meets in the RV parks when he travels the country, the same.
Wow.
And that character shines through in his jurisprudence.
Wow. We'll have to go to a quick break. When we come back, I think that's a great look at his character. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about his work on the courts and share a few other stories about Clarence Thomas. We'll be right back with more right after this. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time. This is your host, Adrian Fonseca. It's so good to be on with you today. We're discussing Justice Clarence Thomas, and it's very interesting to me because Clarence Thomas is so unique in the court, because of his very logical and consistent mind is what I would say. And I think that's a very rare breed amongst just about anybody in our modern times. And so I'm very curious. Joining us right now is the Honorable Amul Thapar, who's on to talk to us about a book that he just wrote defending Clarence Thomas, The People's Justice. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. And tell me about the background about Clarence Thomas. I'm just kind of curious about how he kind of developed in an age where you're not really taught logic and you're not really taught how to think systematically in our modern world. What was his background and education like?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So as I talk about in the introduction, he grew up in Georgia, and his mom made $10 a week, and she couldn't afford to raise him and his brother. So she gave a young Clarence Thomas and his brother to their grandfather to raise. And their grandfather was a man who raised children with an iron fist. But he knew something that Frederick Douglass said that will resonate, and you'll see, if we talk about it later, resonates in his jurisprudence, which is education means emancipation. So although his grandfather was so poor they slept on a dirt floor, he saved every dime he had to send the boys to Catholic schools. And Justice Thomas, from kindergarten through 8th grade, went to a school run by nuns. And he credits those formative years where nuns would whack him with a ruler if he was out of line. So they kept him in line, where education came first. There weren't any alternatives. In the segregated South, his grandfather viewed that as the critical key to Clarence Thomas, a young Clarence Thomas, succeeding. And that's where his most important years, he credits those nuns with having such an important impact that he has been, and there are pictures upon pictures of him meeting with the nuns through the years. He never lost touch with them.
Wow.
Because they were so important to the formative years of his life.
Oh, that's amazing. Go ahead.
What's interesting about that is the reason I call him the people's justice is he never forgets people, even in his cases. And this formative things transfers to his vouchers case when the vouchers come in front of the Supreme Court.
Now, that's really interesting, and I want to get into that in just a second, but I just kind of sparked a thought in my head while you were talking about that, is the fact that I was reading this Dominican friar from the 20th century, and I'm forgetting his name. I wish I could cite him, but he made a point that I thought that just kind of resonated in my head, and he said that the study of logic is the uneducated man's defense against the tyranny of experts. And I thought that was very telling, because they used to be taught in schools, in a lot of the Catholic schools, especially by the religious sisters, that the subject of logic, even at the youngest ages. And that's something that has almost been completely uprooted from the education system. And it's even typically an optional course if you decide to get a bachelor degree in logic. I mean, in philosophy, logic will be an optional course typically. I think that's a very interesting situation. But I want you to jump into that case.
Yeah, so the case came out of Cleveland, and the schools were in such disrepair that 25 public school buildings had been condemned. And it's chapter 2 of the book. And the book takes you through the story of the district court condemning, the buildings getting condemned, then the students complaining they didn't have toilet paper, they didn't have soap for their hands, they didn't have the basic necessities. The kids would come home miserable. And the book traces the chapter of the politicians and Governor Voinovich, who was the mayor of Cleveland and turned the city around, but his one regret was not fixing the schools. And so he becomes governor, and he teams up with Bill Batchelder, the Speaker of the House, and Patrick Sweeney, the leading Democrat, even supported the voucher bill. Bill Batchelder, who's known as in Ohio affectionately as the godfather of vouchers, goes to Cleveland and meets with the city council because he knows he needs local support, especially to overcome the resistance he's going to meet from the teachers' unions. And so as he meets with the city council, and the book talks about these amazing people he met and their backgrounds. And one of them is this woman, Fannie Lewis, who I fell in love with because she was from the highest crime ward. And the quote I include in the book about her, and I include her entire background, and I think your listeners will enjoy reading about her. But the quote I include about her is, no one could jump her. She was the safest person in the highest crime ward. No one could jump her because if they did, she'd call their mother, because she made it a point to know everyone. But the schools were in such disrepair that the plain dealer said, and I'm sorry to use these words, I'm quoting from the plain dealer, the Cleveland plain dealer, society has gone to hell and the Cleveland schools went with it. 15 years worth of school superintendents arrive in Cleveland to announce that a whole generation of children has been lost. And so what happens? They team up, and Democrats in city council, the Republican speaker, Bill Batchelder, and Patrick Sweeney, and they team up with Bishop Pilla, the Catholic bishop there, to put together a voucher program. And the voucher program would allow you to go to community schools, magnet schools, or a private school, including about 42 Catholic schools. And then they get the program in place. The students take overwhelming support of it. When Patrick Sweeney, the leading Democrat, who happens to be from Cleveland, is criticized, he says, he had really harsh words. As I quote in the book, he said, these people who complain never send their children to public schools, but come out foursquare against vouchers. People who have an opportunity to write a check have a voucher in their pocket. What they don't want are children who are in this neighborhood and in the inner city to have a checkbook. This case, the district court suspends the program mid-school year. The students are ordered basically to go back to the public school, and the chapter goes through the drama of this in the book, The People's Justice. But what happens? Bishop Pilla, another hero. There's so many heroes in this chapter, it's going to blow you away. Bishop Pilla steps up and says, we don't have a lot of money being an inner city, basically, diocese, but we are going to fund ourselves all of these kids who have vouchers until they get it right.
Wow.
This case goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Do you want me to tell you what happens, or?
Oh, for sure. Let's wrap that story up. It only leaves in suspense.
Okay. All right. Well, and there's an incredible story about who argued it, and I'm going to leave that for another day. But I'm going to tell you what happened is the court upheld the voucher program, the first in its kind. I think your listeners will find this interesting. Justice Thomas, who's been criticized, right, is favoring the rich over the poor, the strong over the weak, being a traitor to his race, points out this. The promise of Brown v. Board, he says this, it is doubtful that any child may reasonably expected to succeed in life if he is denied an opportunity to an education. Yet in America, Justice Thomas wrote, urban children have been forced into a system that continually fails them. And then he talked about the tragic irony that would exist if people converted the Establishment Clause into a document that denied children the right to a satisfactory education. And then I'm quoting him again, at the time of Reconstruction, blacks considered public education a matter of personal liberation and a necessary function of a free society. A century and a half later, the promise of public school education has failed poor inner-city black kids. And then he uses the quote, education means emancipation. And he says, no, and he's quoting Frederick Douglass. He gave him the last word in his separate writing, and he said, no greater benefit can be bestowed upon a long benighted people than giving to them, as we are here earnestly this day in endeavoring to do, the means of an education.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. That is so true. I think that cannot be overstated. What you just quoted there. And unfortunately, this kind of brings us into a really great point. But unfortunately, this has to be brought up anytime Clarence Thomas is brought up, is the question of identity politics affirmative action and of this whole idea of Clarence Thomas being a race traitor and all these things. It's a very unfortunate situation because Clarence Thomas is a absolute brilliant mind on his own, and he has to be dragged into the topic of identity politics. However, I think it's good that he stands against such silly ideologies. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so Chapter 3 talks about, and we're going to learn more this week, and I don't want to get too far down this road, but Chapter 3 talks about affirmative action. And it's about the Michigan case that is currently being considered at the court. And it walks through, I think the important thing that Justice Thomas never lose sight of, he didn't lose sight of, and there's a Twitter site, by the way, for the book. It's at CT Const Stories, but if they put in the People's Justice, they'll find it. And what's included in there is the backdrop is the picture of the Cleveland parents, a picture of them at the Supreme Court saying, we need vouchers for our kids. In fact, the success of the program was remarkable. All of that's in the book. It will give all your listeners ammunition. The third chapter talks about affirmative action, and I'll make just 2 quick points so that I don't go on forever on this, because I could, is one, Justice Thomas used this quote in another case, and he said, and it's amazing to me, he said, that the courts assume that anything that is predominantly black is inferior. In other words, he's saying to the court, we don't need your help, to quote Frederick Douglass, and the name of the chapter is Do Nothing With Us, which is a quote Justice Thomas uses in the affirmative action case, again quoting Frederick Douglass. The other thing, 2 other things he points out that are really, really important, although I could tell you there's 20 things and we could spend an hour talking about this in that chapter, but 2 critical things he points out is one, the chapter follows the voucher chapter because he points out you need to give kids a good K through 12 education. If you do that, they'll be able to compete without discrimination. And the second thing he points out is when you lower the standards for one race, it's the soft bigotry of lower expectations. And so what happens? He says here the LSAT required for whites and Asians is 1 score, and for blacks and Hispanics is another score. And what he says is what kids do, and we all know this, everyone that has kids knows this. If you set the bar at place A, they'll accomplish A. If you set it at a higher place, they'll accomplish place B.
Wow.
And
I'm very sorry, Your Honor. I'm very sorry. We're just about out of time. We're gonna have you back on because I am very inspired by what you're telling me about Clarence Thomas, and I think other people will be as well. But God bless you, and we'll hope to have you back on in the future.
Thanks. I hope they get the book, The People's Justice.
The People's Justice, published by Regnery. God bless you. God love you. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time. This is your host, Adrian Fonseca. It's so good to be on with you today. Praise be to God. A great conversation we just wrapped up about Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is such an inspiring man. I'm very impressed by his background, by his devotion to his faith, and by his consistency of mind. That's such a rare thing to see.
Yes.
Is consistency of mind, having able to think systematically, have an ordered mind. It's very good.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Logic and reason are very strong within him. I was wondering if he took any of those rhetoric classes or logic classes growing up, unless he's self-educated in that aspect, because most of us are rarely ever get to that subject at all in high school.
Yeah, they don't teach these things in school too much anymore.
Nope.
But he did grow up in the 40s, 50s, I believe. And so he would have got that classic Catholic education back then.
That's true. That's true.
Very, very impressed. But joining us right now is Adam Blai. He's the host or co-host of The Spirit World that airs across the Guadalupe Radio Network and EWTN every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central. Good morning to you, Mr. Blai.
Good morning, Adrian. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Praise be to God. It's very good to be here. It's the sun's rising, and every time I see the sun rise, I think of the rising of the Son of God. So it's a good day. It's a good day. Praise be to God. Now, I was thinking of this yesterday. I was contemplating different topics in regards to the spirit world. And one thing that kind of just kept on eating away at me was so much of the pop culture and related to the occult. And I think a lot of times, I mean, there's the explicit ones, like, I mean, there's Megan Fox coming out and saying that she is a witch and that she drinks the blood of her boyfriend and these things like that. Now, that's very explicit and very bad. But I think a lot of it is very subtle things like doing things like yoga, things with crystals, things like manifestation and things like that. And that's kind of the more of the gear I wanted to bring up today. So let's jump into that topic. What have you seen in regards to this kind of soft peddling occultism in popular culture?
Yeah, I think there's two issues. One is we don't catechize the youth much anymore about why these things are a problem. I think a lot of people vaguely understand that, Ouija boards are bad and witchcraft is bad, and they understand it in a vague way, but maybe not specifically why the Bible forbids those things. And then there's things like yoga that it's become, I think, somewhat ingrained in our culture and normalized to the point where I think it's seen as a good even by a lot of Catholics. The issue there is these are worship postures for Hindu gods. And, depending on the branch of yoga that you're in, the intent is to awaken a spirit in your body, the Kundalini spirit, that will then cause involuntary body motions and animal-like vocalizations and other things. And people might say, like, well, I'm not into that spiritual end of the swimming pool with yoga. I'm just doing the physical exercises. But the problem is, almost inevitably, somebody's going to come around and start talking about mantras or projecting energy meditations. And it's going to become more and more kind of esoteric and metaphysical. And you're going to often end up in that deeper end of the swimming pool eventually. So, and I'm not just saying this as like a armchair quarterback on this. We've had cases of people that were deeply involved in yoga, not originally from here in the States, but from India, that were, born and raised in it and came here to the States and had issues in life and got away from that and ended up entering the church. So I've been debriefed by people that are deeply involved in the real yoga as opposed to, the shopping center, place with just the physical exercises. So there's a lot of layers to this, Adrian, but it's a real issue. And I think the main one is we need to catechize more. And that's kind of the point of the radio show that Deb and I are trying to do.
Absolutely. It's very good that you're doing this. And for those who are unaware, I'm pretty sure most people would be aware, but for those who are unaware, that Adam Blai, he works for the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and he is a peritus, a Catholic Church decreed expert on religious demonology and exorcism. And he's also currently working in canon law school. So I think those are very important to keep in mind. That Mr. Blai is not just some random dude claiming to know about these things. He's intimately involved and familiar with it. And so he is an authority to speak about it. Now, we could spend the whole day talking about yoga, but I want to move over to this kind of, I want to say maybe it's, and you can tell me, I'm kind of conflicted on whether or not this is bad or just kind of a bad tendency. And it's the kind of the question of the use of the language of energies and vibes. And so that is, it always just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like I always was a little uncomfortable when people are like, yeah, you're giving off bad energy, or yeah, that's such a bad vibe. I don't like this place. It's giving me a bad vibe. And I kind of struggle to articulate why that makes me uncomfortable, why I don't like when people say that. So maybe you can help me there or tell me I'm crazy.
No. There's two possibilities there. One is there is a natural discernment kind of, God has written certain things into our heart, things we talk about as divine law or natural law. There's certain things we just intuitively know are not good, and that's built into us as human beings. There's also a certain amount of discernment of evil spirits built into us, and also good. There's a discernment of good built into us, and it varies person to person. So some people are sensitive to these demonic energies, these demonic spirits, and their presence. And that's a gift that God gives to some people. Some, charisms are given for ministerial purposes. And so some people are sensitive to bad vibes when they're around, say, satanic paraphernalia, witchcraft paraphernalia. And I'm talking about real devil worshiping stuff, not, philosophical Satanism where they claim they don't believe in the devil, but I mean real black magic stuff. And, I've talked with law enforcement at various levels that have investigated occult crime scenes. They have felt that same bad vibe, that same creepy, oppressive, threatening spiritual feeling. So sometimes it's legit. Now, where it becomes a problem is when people want to increase that sense that what they would call as a psychic sensitivity or opening the third eye or other occult practices to become aware of the spiritual in an unhealthy way for selfish reasons. I mentioned charisms are for ministry. God gives them for ministry for something good. There's people that want to get that sensitivity because they want power over other people. They want inside information about situations, places, and people. And so when you get involved in that stuff, which usually leads down the road to astral projection, where they think they can leave their body and spy on other people and situations, you start down that road of, I've got superpowers. And I get those superpowers from the dark side. I cut deals to get them. When you're cutting deals to get things and you're owe something to these spirits, that's your clue that you've entered into a destructive relationship.
Wow, yeah, that's very interesting, and I can imagine those things kind of appearing to happen to them, and sort of like a demon, because they can have the swiftness of movement. They can go and see other things, then report back to you and make you think that you're being astrally projected or something like that. I can imagine that being very easily the case. Now, you mentioned something there at the beginning of your response about how many people think that Satanism is atheistic, that it's not real, that it's just a lot of people just trying to grind Christians' gears. And I actually recently was talking to a friend of mine who was told this, and they were like, yeah, I was, one of my friends was telling me, yeah, these Satanists, they're not even real. They're just trying to provoke outrage. And is this really the case? Are Satanism, is it a real thing? And what do we talk about when we mention Satanism?
Well, I think there's two versions of it. There is the devil worshiping, truly believing in the spiritual entity of Satan and seeking power through appeasing him or cutting deals with him in various ways. And that goes back forever. But certainly here in the United States, really goes back to the 60s, where it became mainstream, coming out of LaVey's Satanism in California, and the spinoff of that was the Temple of Set. And those people there's a rapper, Adrian. A lot of times there's like an outer veneer of, we're not really doing blood sacrifices and horrible stuff, because if you tell people we're doing this horrible criminal activity, they're not going to be attracted. But if you say this is just a way to have pleasure and not have guilt, and it's a big party and it's going to be a good time and there's nothing criminal going on, well, that's a lot more attractive. So often there's a wrapper on the outside that says it's just secular humanism. We're about human beings. We don't believe in spirits. We just want pleasure without guilt. But then at the deeper level, there's often real devil worship and real occult rituals. And it eventually leads down the slope into criminal activity, where the rituals become pretty destructive and horrible, and you could not do them in the public forum without getting arrested. Wow. So again, let me go back just a second. There are people that are just secular humanists. Their philosophy doesn't include spiritual realities, and they would call themselves Satanists for various social reasons. It scares people, it's impresses some people, gets some attention. A lot of times it's attention grabbing. But I would say, my guess is the bulk of the people that are seriously committed to this and are claiming to just be secular humanists are actually devil worshipers. Partly because why would you take on the burden of associating yourself with the father of lies, the father of murder, the king of all pedophiles?
Right.
Why would you take the burden of associating yourself with the monster that wants to destroy humanity if you're just a secular humanist? Call yourself a secular humanist. Say, my philosophy is, pleasure and hedonism, and leave it at that. Why do you need to associate yourself with the most horrible thing humanity's ever imagined.
Yeah.
It's a reality. I'm not saying he's imaginary,
Mm-hmm.
but our imagination of what Satan is like is limited.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the ability to fully understand him, just like we don't have the ability to fully understand Jesus or God in our human state. If we get to the beatific vision, we'd have a greater understanding of God, but right now we have a limited human understanding. So anyway, this is a rambling way to say most of these people are playing nice on the surface, and it gets ugly the deeper you get into it.
No, that's a great point, especially considering the fact that Satan is the father of lies, and if you associate with him, why should I believe you? It's kind of crazy to think, oh, yeah, just take them at their word. They claim to be children of the father of lies. So, yeah, that's a great point. Last question here, when we have time, is the question of crystals. Now, in my mind, crystals are one of three things. One, it's either just a rock and nothing happens, and you're just messing with your mind. Two, they are real, and it's natural, and it may actually work. And three, it's something spiritual and it's bad, and we should be avoiding it. So what say you about crystals?
Well, I would actually start at level 0, and that is, so you described 3 levels there. I would take it back to level 0 and say, anytime you put faith and hope in an object other than God, that's idolatry. So whether this crystal is cursed or not, you have broken your friendship with God and said, I don't trust you. I'm going to put my faith and hope in this rock. And so you violated the first commandment before you've even passed 0 to get to 1 and even be concerned about whether it's cursed or not. Now, if you bought it from a New Age shop, probably some ritual's been done over it. You've got that extra layer of issues. And by the way, if you bring something home and weird stuff starts happening in the house and flying around and noises and you can't debunk it, try getting the thing back out of the house and see if it stops. That would be a clue that it has a spirit attached to it. But the more important issue is your relationship with God. And if you violate the first commandment by saying, this rock is my source of relief and happiness and power and whatever else, you've said to God, I don't trust you. And so that's the more important part of that issue.
Wow, that's a great, concise answer. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's about all the time we have. So if people want to hear more, because we barely get to talk like for 10 minutes, but you can hear Adam and Debbie every single Saturday at 10 a.m. across the Guadalupe Radio Network and EWTN with the Spirit World. But where can people stay connected with you, Mr. Blai?
Well, I have a website for the public called religiousdemonology.com, and that has a lot of basic information for the public. And then the Spirit World has a Facebook page where we receive questions that we could possibly address on air.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blai. And that's going to do it. We're going to go into our game show, Fear and Trembling. So if you can join us, call now, 877-757-9424, 877-757-9424. We're playing our game show, Fear and Trembling, and you could be the winner. How do you win? Just dial 877-757-9424. We're giving away a book from Sophia Institute Press, so call now. We'll be right back. 757-9424, 877-757-9424. That's the number to call to be part of our game show, Fear and Trembling, where we give out prizes and you could win. 877-757-9424. We always take the first caller. Whoever calls in first will be the contestant and have an opportunity to win the prize this week. You may be asking, what am I calling into? What am I going to play? What are we talking about here? Well, this is the Fear and Trembling game show where I have 3 Catholic trivia questions. But the trick is I'm not going to ask you the Catholic trivia questions. I'm going to ask Tito the questions, and it's his job to tell me an answer. Your job is to tell me whether or not he is right or whether or not he is wrong. And so that means that even if you just guess, if you don't know the answer at all and you're just guessing, that gives you a 50-50 chance of getting the answer correct. And so how do you play? You just have to call in 877-757-9424. One more time since I messed that number up. 877-757-9424. We always take the first caller, and every correct answer goes into the coffee cup of divine providence to win this week's prize. Tito, what could they win?
Thank you, Adrian. The Fear and Trembling Prize for today is a book by Sophia Institute Press called 30 Days to Your New Life. In this no-nonsense, refreshingly direct book, Anthony DiStefano bridges the gap between personal development programs and Catholic spirituality. Read more at sophiainstitute.com. The mission of Sophia Institute Press is to provide substantial spiritual formation to help readers grow in holiness and in their knowledge of the Catholic faith.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Sophia Institute Press, for your generous sponsorship this week. Now, that number to call, 877-757-9424. One more time, 877-757-9424. And we always take the first caller, and you could be that first caller. What do you do to be able to be that first caller? It's very simple. I'm looking over to my left right now, and we actually do not have a caller on the line, which means if you pick up the phone now and dial 877-757-9424, you will in fact be the person who has the opportunity to win this week's prize, which was generously sponsored by Sophia Institute Press. Now, joining us right now is Denise. Good morning, Denise.
Good morning.
Denise, where are you calling in from?
We're driving through Texas, Marshall, Texas.
Well, you're driving through Texas. So where are you from originally? Where are you driving to?
Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson.
That's cool. We love
Cats.
Tucson, Arizona. I'm going to take a trip out to Arizona. I may take one in August. I'm thinking maybe. We'll see. Arizona seems like a very beautiful place to be.
Visit the shrine. They just built a shrine on Mount Lemmon, the Byzantine Catholic Church, Our Lady of Knots.
Really?
Undoer of Knots. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm writing that down as you speak, actually, because I want to look that up. Maybe I will take a trip out there. You're convincing me. Our Lady of Undoer of Knots in Arizona, Mount Lemmon. There you go. I found it. That's really cool. Yeah, you just put that on my to-go list. There you go. That's pretty neat. Thank you very much for that. And so where are you off to today? Where are you heading to?
We're going back home from family reunion in Virginia.
Well, that's awesome. Praise be to God. We're going to a family reunion in Virginia from Arizona, driving through Texas. We'd love to hear it. That's pretty great. Well, are you? Who's in the car with you?
My husband, Dennis.
Good morning, Dennis. Hope you're tuning in and you're listening.
We're not on the speaker, though.
Oh, okay. Hope he is listening in keenly so that way he can maybe help you out with these questions. So I'm looking at these questions. I have to say, well, 2 out of 3 might be easy. One of these might be a little difficult. Are you ready to play the game? Are you familiar with how the game works?
Well, I heard your instructions, and I have to guess if.
It's very easy.
Yes.
You don't have to worry.
No.
Yeah.
I have 3 questions. I'm going to ask Tito. He's going to give an answer. You have to determine whether or not he is trying to trick you. And so it'll be very easy. You have a 50-50 chance of getting each question correct. Are you ready to play?
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's do question number 1.
All right.
Tito.
Yes.
The question on the board. Who publicly burned a papal bull, which a papal bull is a letter from the Pope, in Wittenberg, Germany in December of 1520. Some might say Wittenberg, German.
Wittenberg, papal bull. So it's not a cow from the Vatican.
It's not.
Okay. Well, we all know he's somewhere down under, but his name's Martin Luther.
Wow. He moved to Australia, you say? Different down under.
Different down under, underneath the Earth's crust.
Oh, okay, got it. All right. Well, that's there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a good guess as to who this person could possibly be. Denise. 15 seconds on the clock. The question is, who publicly burned a papal bull in Wittenberg, Germany in December of 1520? Tito seems to think it's Martin Luther. What say you, Denise, driving through Marshall, Texas?
Well, it sounds like maybe not. I'm not sure, but.
Are you sure you're going to go with no?
Wait. No.
No, yes, or no, no? Final answer. Yes or no? Denise?
Hello, Denise. Huh.
Let's see. Well, Denise is still on the line?
Yeah, she's still
I
on
can
the
see her
line.
on the line there, but she dropped off. Maybe she hit through a rough patch in Marshall, Texas. But we're going to go with that she has decided to say yes. I'm going to say that she says yes. That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Which is, in fact, correct.
Correct.
That
Yes.
is, in fact, correct. It
Yes.
is, in fact, Martin Luther.
Yeah.
Denise, if you can hear us, maybe hang up and call back. That number,
Yeah.
877-757-9424 is the number. So if you want to call us back, you are welcome to do so. But I think we still kind of have you on the line,
Yeah,
but we can't hear you speak at the moment. So if you want to, you're welcome to hop off and hop back on, or perhaps we can give her a call back and drop her up the line and give her a ring and see if we can get her back on and within the next couple minutes while we're still trying to play the game here. So that happens occasionally. We are working on that problem, getting her reconnected. But thank you very much. I'm going to say, the Martin Luther. Well, who knows if he's in hell? I think you could reasonably say that he certainly lived a life that would land somebody in hell. You know, destroying the church, causing great schism in the world, and promoting bad ideologies and morality. Yeah, that I would argue that would be not ideal. Denise, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
There you go. You're back. We were struggling to hear you there for a second. Let's jump into the second question. We're running low on time now, but I think you're going to be able to get these right. We gave you the first one. I assume that you decided yes, Martin Luther was the correct answer, but let's jump into question number 2,
Okay.
Tito. The question is very easy. This is a very easy question. The question is, what is mortification?
Oh, goodness gracious, yeah. When, as Taylor says, when he's adulting, got a house. So when the mortgage on the parish church expires.
When the mortgage on the parish church expires.
Yeah.
All right, Denise, 15 seconds on the clock. The question is, what is mortification? Well, I think Tito heard mortgagification, and he said, when the mortgage on the parish church expires. What say you, Denise?
Well, that was a funny answer, but I say no.
She says no, probably not right. That is correct.
Correct.
It is not when the mortgage of the parish church expires. In fact, it's acts of self-discipline, including prayer, hardship, austerities, and penance. So you're 2 for 2 so far.
Yep.
I'm looking at this, and the third question here, I think you're going to be able to get this one too. So are you ready for question number 3?
All right.
Let's do it. Question number 3, Tito.
Okay.
What is the term for the square cloth which the priest uses to cover the chalice, and he matches it in the material and designs of the vestments?
Okay, so it's a square cloth, it's a chalice, and it's covered, chalice veil.
Yeah, that's pretty on the nose.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a covering the chalice.
Yep.
And so it's
A
veiling
veil.
it, and it's on the chalice, so it's a chalice veil. Okay, I see what you're going with. I see what you're
as
thinking
opposed
is.
to a chalice mantilla.
Right, that makes sense. Denise, 15 seconds on the clock. What is the term for the square cloth which the priest uses to cover the chalice and matches the material and designs of the vestments? Whew, that's a long question. Tito seems to think it's chalice veil. What say you? Is he right or is he wrong?
I think it's something else, but I don't remember the name, so I have to say no.
She's going to go with no. Oh, Denise, that one is, in fact, correct. It is the chalice veil is the correct answer. But don't worry, Denise. You got 2 out of 3. The
Good
chalice
job.
veil is a square cloth that covers the chalice. But you did pretty good. You did pretty good, all things considered. Despite the phone problems, we were able to still get you in the coffee cup of Divine Providence twice to win this week's prize. So congratulations.
All right. Thank you so much.
Well, absolutely. Well, make sure you stay on the line. We're going to put you on hold, and Tito's going to go and get your contact information. So if we draw your name on Friday, we can able to send you the prize from Sophia Institute. But God bless you. God love you. And have a safe trip home.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. I'll put you on hold. And that's going to do it for the radio side. We're going to be heading into our after show. You can join us on YouTube. I don't know where else you could join us because apparently we're having issues on our streaming platforms, which we got to get that nailed out. So we'll see you back 6 a.m. Central, 7 Eastern across the Guadalupe Radio Network, or we'll see you back on the after show. If you can find us, check us out and see if you can hunt us down, and we'd love to interact with you directly. God bless you, God love you, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.
Good morning. I hope you had a good week so far. We're halfway through. Can you believe it? I can't. Week's going by fast. The next week, sometime this month, actually, sometime in July, we are heading to, I'm heading to Dallas. And I'll be doing the show out of Dallas for probably about a week. That'll be interesting. Tomorrow, we're going to have our buddy Alan Smith on. We're going to be talking about Declaration of Dependence written by Fulton Sheen, which is a very relevant topic, but it's kind of funny getting a Canadian to talking about America. But he will be on with us talking about America, talking about Declaration of Dependence. It's a very beautiful book. I think it's published by Sophia. I have not read the book cover to cover, but I have read large chunks of it. Let me see. I'm going to check our different passages or different our different social media streams so we can see what comments are going through right now. It's kind of hard to figure out what's working, what's not working. Apparently our Rumble is down today again. So we definitely got to figure out why that's the case. Make sure that does not happen again. So we definitely need to work on that. Let's see. Lucretia says, good morning. Said, awesome interview. I wonder, you're talking about the Clarence Thomas interview, I'm presuming. Nicole Flores, a friend of mine, or a friend of a friend, actually posted on Facebook this post, and it's wild. It's pretty wild. They're distributing cake at a Catholic church in the Philippines. Like, what? I don't even know if that's valid matter. I mean, cake is bread, but because you would be adding like sugar and icing and all of that onto it, is that still valid? Yikes. Yeah, that's no bueno. Yikes. Very, very concerning situation. I really hope that this is I hope this is not a real Catholic church, because that is scandalous. Every day, man. Every day there's something. People are doing crazy things at the Mass. Why can't people just not do that? Can people just stop being crazy for like 5 minutes? Why can't people just say the red and do the black? Just do what you're told. Yeah, it's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. Sci-Fi Mike was talking about it. He said, Adrian, once you're a maiden knight, it's difficult to be removed from the rolls. If you pay your annual dues, you're likely and still in good standing. I'm not in good standing because I haven't paid my dues since 2020. He said, but if that is, he said, but if this is what the knights are doing with their funds, why would you? Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be like, everybody defund the Knights of Columbus. Not yet, anyways. We'll see what the reaction is from the Knights of Columbus. But for now, I would say if you're a knight in good standing and you pay your dues, well, then have your voices be heard. Go contact your council and be like, hey, at the very least, our council should be condemning this among our members and publicly. And maybe our other people, or the people in our higher ups and the knights, the grand knight, should come out and say, hey, we're condemning this at our level. And if it's just this one council and this one bishop who's doing this bad thing, then so be it. There's always bad people in organizations. But the response from the knights will be very telling. We'll see what happens there. Very, very concerning. And Genevieve says, good morning, Adrian. What's your favorite color? My favorite color is blue, which is why I wear blue pretty much every single day. I have like 3 blue jackets, and I pretty much only wear blue pretty much. I wear black occasionally, but yeah. Whew, sleepy. So I also like red. I like red because that was my school colors in high school and in college. And so I really like red as well, but blue is probably my favorite color. Though, you know, sometimes I see red flags and I'm like, should I avoid those? And I'm like, well, red's my favorite color. And so I go running towards the red flags. Just kidding, joking. That's a joke. Dominic says, will you play Emily as a friend of mine, please? Let's see. Can you find the Emily as a friend of mine button, Taylor? Probably not. I don't know if you'll be able to find that. I think it's in the bottom right corner of the second tab. I think. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Sci-Fi Mike says, I like green during ordinary time. What's ordinary time? Just kidding. In the traditional rite, it's considered a time after Pentecost, so it's just season after Pentecost. And it's and yeah, we still wear green as well. So same color vestments. I'm not a huge fan of the color green, generally speaking, to be honest. Yeah. Can't find it, Taylor? No. No problem. Yeah, there's a lot of buttons. It's there somewhere, but I don't know. Light Z10 said, what about Jesus is a friend of mine? That one. Everybody knows that one. Let's see. We'll see. Direct all music and button questions to Taylor and see what he can do. Let's see here. I'm ready for a nap. I got more sleep than usual last night, and I feel more tired than I did the day before. I went to bed around around 10. I went to bed about 10 o'clock. And yeah, I'm still really sleepy. I don't know why. Did I go to bed around 10 o'clock? I think I did. I kind of get it confused sometimes. Now, what do you guys think about the interview with Adam and with just Thapar? I don't know how to say his name. Yeah, I went to bed around 10. I went to bed around 10 o'clock. Shouldn't be that late. Let's see. I'd be very curious to know what you thought about the interviews today and any questions you might have for our guests, because maybe we'll have them back on. Now, Don just commented. He said, good morning. Good morning to you, Don. It is a good morning. I'm sleepy.
Don, on Telegram?
On Facebook.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Sci-Fi Mike says, I put some B vitamin in my protein smoothie last night, and I feel pretty good today. Yeah, B vitamins. I take B vitamins every morning, to be honest. I try to, anything that I can put in my body to keep me awake, I just kind of put myself in all of that. It's,
Do Do you have your caffeine?
Yep.
Oh, good.
It's always make sure I'm.
How many
caffeinated.
milligrams is that you take?
About 2,000.
Is that a lot for caffeine?
No, I'm just joking.
Okay, because that's a lot for anything else.
I'd be dead. I'd be dead.
You might be levitating.
No, I'd be in 6 feet under. It's going back to our topic from yesterday. Taylor, did you just make a decision? You have to grab her. Oh, you can't talk? Oh. Taylor said he can't talk. He's avoiding speaking. He's apparently dying. So pray for Taylor.
Yes.
Let's see. Eric says, the new studio almost ready? Not even close, Eric. Not even close.
Nope.
We probably will be done by the end of July is the kind of the goal right now.
Oh my goodness, end of July?
Yeah, end of July. That's the goal. We the big thing that we need is our table here. We're replacing this table. The problem is the table hasn't come in yet. We ordered it a few weeks ago, and we can't move forward with anything until that table comes in, because once we get the table, then we can install the new mics, then we can install the cameras, then we can install everything else, but it relies on replacing this table first. So we were looking at July 10th as a day that we redo the studio, the week we do redo the studio. But right now, honestly, it's looking like it's probably not going to be that week. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Maybe they will get the table in next week, but yeah, I don't know. So it's kind of been slow going. It's going to take all the week of the 10th to, ideally, it'll take all the week of the 10th to build out. And then after that's built out, then we're going to have the people who do the sound panels come in afterwards and come in and set up the sound panels. And so I've been having discussions with people about that recently. So we shall see.
Well, I don't know anything about building a studio, but it takes 3 weeks, you think?
For what?
Because you said end of July. So if it does arrive on time, the table, and we start the week of July 10th, that would be 3 weeks and 1 day.
Well,
by the end of July.
I say end of July. I didn't mean like literally the last day, but just like towards the end of July.
Gotcha.
So it's going to take the entire week of the 10th for sure, presuming that we start that week. And then I don't know how long the installing of the sound panels are going to take, because it just depends on what we end up doing, because we may end up getting... I'm talking to the guys about the sound panels, and one thing they're suggesting is a full 360 sound panel that wraps around the room.
Wow.
And I don't know how long something like that takes. A regular sound panel shouldn't take more than a day to set up, because it's like you hang it like a picture almost, but it's a little bit deeper into the wall. So that's kind of the situation. So I don't know how long that takes. Maybe it'll take a couple days that week, and it depends on when they can show up. I doubt they'll be able to come like the next day that we're done. So as soon as they're able to come, so I just presume it's going to take probably to the end of July. What day specifically, I don't know.
Will it cover the sound panels? Will they be covering the windows?
No.
Okay.
Was that a joke?
No, I don't know anything.
Okay. I was about to say.
I was just thinking back to anytime I see sound panels, I just imagine a music studio with no windows except the production window, which goes into another room.
Yeah, no, the windows will remain.
Okay, good. So we'll have a nice view of our neighbors still.
Yeah, the windows, these windows actually are double paned, so that way they can block out the sound from outside.
Is that just for us, or is that the entire building?
That's just for us.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. So there you guys have the update on what's going on. Master Baker says 2 weeks. The answer is always 2 weeks. So, all right. It'll be ready in 2 weeks. Ask me again in 2 weeks.
You sound like a consultant.
Should I be I think I should become a project manager for building houses.
Or you'd make a lot of money in the South.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's a building boom.
Really?
Yeah, too many. Yeah, the more deeper, the more. I can't speak English again. The further you go into the South, the more building there is, because more people. There's more red states, and in the blue states, it's just high regulation. the thing with California, why they can't build anything, there's just too much red tape to go through, and so the only thing worth building are high-end condos, homes, and apartments to get any ROI. And so the middle and lower income people are squeezed out of the market. So that's where you see homeless. And when you see the homeless out there, most of them, the new homeless last year, the majority of them are lower middle income people.
Really?
Yeah, they've got jobs.
Really?
They have Wi-Fi. Yeah, they just can't afford homes. It's so highly regulated, especially in San Jose, San Francisco.
Interesting.
Yeah, the high-tech boom is just squeezing them out, and they keep piling on more and more regulations. That's why they can't finish building their super train, or whatever it's called, the super bullet, from L.A. to San Francisco. It's that they have too many regulations and red tape they have to go through. They've gone through $2 billion already and only laid about a mile or two of track. Something along those lines. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Regulation on top regulations.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Let's see. Yeah, California is wild. Wild situations over there. I feel like every day when I look at the news, for some reason, there's always a story from California.
California's turning into weird Florida.
And it's interesting because I think that California is probably like a weathercock for the rest of the country.
Yeah, well, whatever happens in California eventually happens here, they say. So I really am not looking forward to high-priced homes.
Yeah, whatever's happening there is going to be leaking over soon enough.
Unless we just funnel them all in Austin and build a wall around.
It was funny.
Austin.
There was a, let me see if I can find it. There was a clip. Ben Shapiro was giving a speech, and they said, like, what can we do about California? And this was back when he was still, the Daily Wire was in California.
Yep.
And he was like, we can just come to Texas. And he ended up going to Tennessee. I was like, dang, that's rough. But
yeah, what's the attraction in Tennessee?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess maybe they have good taxes there. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is there. But it was funny because there was, I want to find it. I don't want to try to remember, do it from memory. I want to see if I can find him saying it because it's really funny. But it was basically, he said, he's like, what we do, because someone was asking him, the question was, what we do about Californians' mass exodus to Texas. What do we do about them coming to Texas and kind of infiltrating the politics there and turning the state blue? And he said, okay, what we do is we lure them all into Texas, and then all the Texans circle around them and come and invade California, and then we set up Texas and California, and we build a wall around California to prevent them from coming back. And so we get the good weather of California, but the politics of Texas. And I was like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good option. I'm for it. But it was really funny when he said it, and I can't find the clip. Oh well, this was a long time ago. This was like 5 years ago when he said this, and I thought it was so funny.
Well, most of them, not most of them, but a large percentage of them are disgruntled conservatives and Catholics and other Christians that are moving to Texas. So they're not going to be changing the politics too much. And they don't want to acknowledge this, but the Latinos are rapidly turning red.
I hope so. I hope that's true. People keep saying that, but...
Well, South Texas, it did. It flipped. And when Biden allegedly won.
Yeah, there you go.
That was hilarious. Hilarious meaning ironic.
We'll see what happens in California. That would be the real thing. Eric says, Rudy and his great state of California. Yeah, Rudy loves California. I was talking to him about it the other day. He's like, yeah, I love California. He's like, it's just too expensive. And yeah, that's the thing, right? Like Tito was saying, like, you can't be middle income in California. You're either rich or you're poor. That's it. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know what the solution is.
There are middle-income jobs. There's just not middle-income housing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. Like, how can that be sustainable if all the middle and lower class flee California? Well, then the rich people are going to lose their money too, because who's running and buying the products from their businesses?
Yeah.
At the very least, who's running the businesses? Like, who's going to be working the day-to-day? Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting to me. I don't know.
I remember I may have mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned it on the radio. My friend Serge works for Lexus, and he makes a good salary, and he has 3 children, and he could only afford a lower middle income apartment. And he got transferred to the Dallas headquarters, and now he lives in a upper middle income neighborhood with a house and a yard of his own. That's night and day between California and Texas. And he had a middle to high management job at Lexus. Just parts. That's crazy. Lexus, that's a luxury car maker. We're talking BMW. Oh, Taylor, what is this? Are you a Yugo fan? Oh, his voice is materializing.
Well, I have a bad cough right now, so every time I talk, I cough. But what do you mean Lexus is a luxury car?
It's a luxury brand for Toyota.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Yeah. What you thought it was? Tonka toy?
It's a luxury brand for people in our social economic sphere.
I see.
For people in the upper social economic sphere, a Lexus is not a luxury vehicle.
That's what I was thinking, because I'm thinking, like, y'all are talking about California and L.A., so I'm like,
yeah,
Lexus
in LA,
is like a Prius there.
Yeah, exactly. A Lexus is not a nice car or fancy car in California. In Texas, it is 100% a luxury vehicle. But yeah, if you go to California, people are driving Bugattis. They're driving Ferraris.
Those things are like 2.5 million.
There's got to be a separate category. What are they called? Are they called luxury cars? Okay, maybe Lexus is a high-end car.
Well, I would consider Lexus a luxury vehicle. I mean, like you said, I think it's a luxury brand of Toyota, and so it's their vehicles. I mean, they're not. I mean, their upper end vehicles are like $100,000.
Yeah.
Their lower end vehicles are like what, 40?
Yeah.
40 grand. So that's upper for middle class Americans. That's pretty expensive.
40 can get you a pretty good looking BMW though, or Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Lexus, I wouldn't consider it a luxury in that. It's luxury in comparison to Toyota. But if you go to California, it's just a totally different world. It's weird.
What's y'all's dream car?
I have my dream car. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
Whoa.
My dream car is would probably be a GMC Denali.
Is that the big one, like the Suburban?
What is that? I looked it up. I'm going to look it up.
It's a luxury truck.
Oh, truck.
Luxury
truck.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a GMC Sierra 1500 Denali.
I like is it a Buick Escapade or a Chevy Suburban? I like giant SUVs.
Those are hard to park.
I don't care.
Yeah, if I could have, if you get the expensive ones, then who cares? Because then they have the 360 cameras.
I think you might have shown me that truck.
Yeah, this truck is the most expensive vehicle that I possibly want is about $100,000. Like if I won the lottery, I would not spend more than $100,000 on a vehicle, because that's like the vehicle that I'm just like, if I just had unlimited money and I could buy whatever vehicle I wanted, I just want to spend $100,000, which is a lot for like a normal person.
A lot. You could buy a house,
but it's not like a Ferrari or a Bugatti or
Lotus.
Wait, would you rather get like an old car, like a 60s, 70s Mustang, or Corvette, or like a newer like Ferrari or something like that?
I'd rather have a truck.
Chevy Viper.
Chevy Viper.
I'd rather have a truck.
I'm kidding.
I'd rather have a really, really, really nice truck and then be able to pay for the gas.
Yeah, but to say the gas, that's the tough part.
But
I would like to have a Toyota SUV. That's the car that I would pay for. The one that I like, but I'm not going to pay for, is a BMW.
Let's see. Paul said, "Amen, Tito. If you leave your blue state behind, please leave your blue state and mindset back. California is the model of division," says Paul. Sci-Fi Mike said, "It used to be a luxury vehicle. Now it's expensive Toyota with a different label." That's true. That's a good point,
Lexus?
Sci-Fi Mike. Yeah.
The low-end Lexuses are high-end Camrys, in my opinion.
Tammy said, "One good thing I have to say about Lexus is a friend of mine had an old model, was hit on the side, and the only thing that saved her was a metal rod that was in the door as a safety measure." Wow, that's cool. There you go.
It is Toyota.
Well, you see people driving in smart cars and stuff like that, and I'm like, if you get hit by a bike, your car's totaled.
Yeah.
yeah. If you see a smart car in a parking spot you want, you can just pick it up with two hands.
That's one of like my. No, that's one of my like. I hate when you're trying to find a parking spot, and there's like a small car or a motorcycle parked in the spot, and you're driving around the corner like, oh, I got a spot. After 20 minutes, pull in there. So there's a motorcycle or car parked there. You're like, now I got to go back around.
Don't you drive an AMC Gremlin?
No.
No.
You're mistaken.
You sure? American Motor Company Gremlin.
No, I drive a Lamborghini.
Sure you do.
Yeah.
Tammy says, "So why don't you take abandoned hotels or abandoned office buildings, turn them into sanctuary for the homeless on the condition that they have jobs while they're there? Jobs can be worked in the building, doing cleanup, maintenance. They can apply for the outside jobs and live there until they can afford to be on their own."
That won't work in California.
Why not?
You need to pass government codes to transform a certain building into a residential area.
There's a lot of rules
too much
there,
red tape. Yeah. The Catholic charities, all the others, and the other secular charities that operate there, the biggest obstacle to getting anything done is zoning. To develop homes or that's a good idea. Your idea, Adrian, it's just too much red tape. The same programs in Houston. I was watching this documentary on the homeless crisis and the issue and how to solve it. Houston is the only major city that has a successful housing program for the homeless because of deregulation. And all the charities that they were talking to, they look like with the nose rings and tattoos. They're like, yeah, we love Houston. There's no regulations. It's awesome.
No state tax.
That too.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Very successful. That's why we don't have the homeless. We have homeless people. We just don't have them camping out on our streets like they are in Austin, Portland,
they are
Seattle.
in Houston. I don't know. I see them.
Yeah, you go downtown.
Yeah, you do, but it's not like it is. Have you been to? You have been to Burbank.
Yeah.
They got these entire city blocks of homeless living on the sidewalks.
Oh, like Skid Row.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Skid Row. I haven't been to San Francisco, and I heard that's like really, really bad.
Yeah, businesses
it's
are
in
moving
Canada
out.
too.
Did you say Canada?
Yeah, I think it was at either.
That's a country.
I know, but I'm just saying, like in Montreal or Quebec where I visited, they had the same situation of Skid Row.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The homeless, they speak French?
It's universal, I think.
If they don't speak French, they get in trouble.
Is that true?
No.
Yeah, they do. They do.
I'm sure not in Toronto.
No,
because Americanized.
Quebec City and Montreal are in the province of Quebec.
Yeah, those are French speaking.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Are you part French? No. No?
I like French fries.
You like French fries?
Yeah.
I like freedom fries myself.
Freedom fries.
Freedom fries. Where's that from? That's got to be from somewhere.
That was during the first Gulf War when France refused to participate. People started renaming anything French with freedom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I was thinking it was from like an Adam Sandler movie or something.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I thought it was a joke from something.
Have you guys...
No more jokes, okay?
Heard of the movie Happy Gilmore?
Yeah, I've seen
it.
Golf?
Yesterday.
Okay. Apparently, there's this guy that loved the movie so much, and his last name was Gilmore. He named his first son Happy.
Yikes! I would never do that.
Happy Gilmore was raised playing golf. He just got a scholarship from Ball State University to play on the golf team.
Where's Ball State at?
Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just built out my dream truck right now, like with everything,
GMC?
a GMC, the most expensive thing that could possibly get. It's comes out to $104,525.
What color?
Blue.
Very
he did
good.
Say his, well,
Adrian, blue.
You missed it. He said his favorite color was blue. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's my favorite color, too.
Oh, really?
And so it comes out to basically $105,000, which is a $1,700 monthly payment with $5,226 down.
72 months? That's
72 months,
$1,700.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
That's
yeah,
nuts.
I could never afford that.
You could just,
that's 6 years.
You could move to River Oaks.
That's 6 years.
Oh yeah, I definitely can never buy that. But it's a price of like I guess not anymore. I was gonna say it's a price of a house, but
you could
can't
live
really
in the truck. You could live in the truck.
True, I could live in the truck.
People live in those little mini houses.
But for $105,000,
minimalists.
Yeah, I mean you can't really get a nice a house anymore for $105 anymore.
No. Where? Here in Houston?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you gotta.
Prices are
crazy.
soaring.
Yeah. I was looking at houses and they were like $200,000 for a small house, and I was like, this is crazy.
Well, you're not married yet, and that's a great investment, Adrian. You should get it.
Nah.
You build
$200,000.
Oh, with the housing, with the prices skyrocketing.
Little bitty house.
Yes. Oh, you're gonna get so much equity in about 2 years. That's better. That's better than buying stock in Amazon.
Ooh.
We shall see. We shall see.
That's
I just put all my money in Bud Light, so.
Oh. Gotta buy it when they're low. That's when you buy it, and now's the perfect time to buy.
I buy as much of it as I can, and then I
dump it.
And I dump it just to ruin their stock even further.
Dump it.
There you go. All right, guys, we'll be back tomorrow. We didn't talk about anything today.
Well, that's what we do in the last 30 minutes.
We'll be back tomorrow. I don't know what we're talking about tomorrow. I would Alan Smith, but we'll see who else. God bless you. God love you. We'll be back.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.